All right, TK time. FP's in for dibs. Tim Kawakami, The Athletic. The TK Pod, which is part of the Odyssey family. You can find it on our YouTube page, and I find it to be some of the most in-depth stuff going on throughout Bay Area sports. So when we've got stuff where, like, we're sitting here on sports radio and we're throwing stuff against the wall to see if it sticks, I love to have TK on to be like, okay, where's this actually going? So first off, thanks for coming on, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice introduction. Appreciate that, Mark.
Yeah, man, and I actually mean it. That's the other thing about it. Yeah,
I could tell.
Yeah,
I could feel the integrity there.
Okay, good.
All good. There's always stuff going. There's always stuff going on. There's always stuff to talk about. That's what I appreciate.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And in this particular case, we'd love to sort of feel what you think about where the Draymond Green experience is going. Not so much over the next 8 games, but in the offseason, because as you know, a lot of people last week watched Steph Tears and Steve's word unforgivable and thought maybe we were at a crossroads with Draymond's future in the Bay.
You know, they're always in somewhat of a crossroads because Draymond puts them there. He punched a teammate. He's been suspended for playoff games multiple times. He's, crossed a lot of lines. But, I mean, when I kept saying, and I hear this from the Warriors stakeholders as I wrote, not just the last few days, but over the last few weeks, last few months, even last few years, is that he's worth it. Like, they make that decision every time. And at some point, he probably won't be worth it. And that might be in a year. It might be in 2 years. If there's some great trade offer for him, it might be this offseason. But I don't think that's coming. And a game like last night is why they make these decisions. I'll tell the honest truth is I was going to write a column on Draymond is very similar to the one it turned out even before that game happened, just presuming he was going to have a really good game because that's the way it goes with Draymond. Something controversial happens, something that pushes the Warriors and the fans and the nation to wonder, is this guy, should he still be around? And he usually pulls out a great game or 2 or 3 or 5. I think there's less of them, as he gets older. I think that's what happens. But they make these decisions. They gave him the contract last offseason, and that was after he punched Jordan Poole, and that was after they only, they got to the second round of playoffs. So that was as this dynasty has kind of, twisted and turned, and maybe it's at an end, and maybe they have one more run in them. They just make this decision on a case-by-case, on a day-to-day, on a month-to-month. And they're not going to get anybody better than Draymond Green. They just not. And there will be a point where they can. There will be a point where he's not as good a player that you have to deal with all these things. They are not there, and they continuously evaluate it, but I think they're pretty far from there, actually.
So they're not there publicly, or TMSFP, by the way, they're not there privately yet?
They're not there. They're not there. They're not even close to there. Is there frustration? Sure. Is there, are they momentarily, and again, it's multiple people, so I don't want to just say it's a universal thing, but I think they kind of come to an agreement on these things. Yeah, do they not want him to get ejected from a really important game when Jonathan Kuminga's already out 4 minutes into it? Absolutely. Do they not want him to get suspended indefinitely? Absolutely. But it's also part of who Draymond is, and they don't, it would be great if they could expect him to be a perfect citizen from now on. He's not going to be. And there's some practicality in that. And, yeah, I mean, he does this 3 or 4 more times, or if he gets suspended 1 more time, that might be it. But none of that has happened. And in ejection, I felt the same thing just because I know them so well, and I've dealt with this, and I've talked to them. One ejection wasn't going to be the thing that is the flashpoint. He's gotten ejected before many times. It's not great. Other players have gotten ejected. It's not great. It wasn't going to be the one thing. He knocks somebody around and gets a 7-game suspension, that would be different, but that has not happened since he's had the indefinite suspension. I just don't, what I keep saying, and what I know because I ask the questions, you don't just judge it based on the last thing you saw, and then because SportsCenter's talking about, and because, yes, the Steph, images were very stark. He was near tears. But it was not because in my opinion, the way I've interpreted and the way I've talked to people, the Warriors, it wasn't, this is over, I'm sick of it. It was, doesn't he understand we need him on the floor? That's what it was. That he isn't, they're not mad because they're done with him. They're mad because they want him on the floor. And it's the frustration of, let's get him on the floor. Now, they won that game. It has been, I think, you could theorize if they lost that game and because Draymond got thrown out, there might be some even harsher emotions, but I still don't think that would have been the end of it. This is a big picture. This is a long-running thing. It's not just one thing, and, oh, my God, that's it, it's over. That's not how they played it. It's Draymond Green's ups and its downs and its high values and low values, and you have to count the good stuff, too, and they do count the good stuff. And if you subtract Draymond Green from this team, guess what? They're not even close to where they are now. They might have fewer headaches, and they might have, a lot less controversy, but they're not the same team. And we saw it last night, and we've seen it other times this season, and we've seen it a ton over 4 championships, in a decade.
So they're not a 10 seed without Draymond? Is that what you're saying?
They're not even close. They're not even close. Yeah, it's not even.
But he's missed like 20 games though. Like you could make the argument that if he played those 20 games, they'd be a 6 seed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the plus. You can't just look at this as only good and only bad. You just can't. Is the basketball team that they put on the floor to have a chance in the play-in tournament or whatever has to include Draymond Green on it, and that is also the guy who gets suspended. That's also the guy that puts them through headaches. But the people who decide this are Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, Joe Lacob, Mike Dunleavy Jr., and there's others, but those are the main guys. And their belief is that, and I agree with them on this, and there's times I thought, maybe they should be done with Draymond, but they don't win 35 games without Draymond. I believe that, 37, whatever you want to put it. They're out of the playoffs. And if Draymond can put together a full season at some point, and he hasn't been able to do that, then there might be a very good team. We shall see. Or they might not be. He might be too old and he can't do this consistently. But they have nothing to... Trace Jackson Davis can't do that. Maybe he can in a year or two. He can't do it now. Kevon Looney certainly can't do it anymore. There aren't guys who can do what he does, specifically team with Steph Curry. Again, there might become a point when, if he gets suspended again, this is a different conversation. He has not got suspended again. And it's just that because of, I understand it's loaded. He's had the suspensions twice this season already. He's done the things he's done. Then it's one more time. That's it, over, because we're all tired of it. That's not where they are. The viewers are a different thing than the Golden State Warriors. And viewers can just say, just dump them. What do you dump them for? How do you move that contract? Who are they getting to replace them? How good are they going to be if they have to replace them? Those are the practical questions. They're the ones dealing with it, and it's not just, oh, my God, I saw him get it thrown out. I'm tired of it, so he's done. That's not where they are, and that's not how you actually run a real franchise.
Yeah, totally get that, and I buy a lot of what you're saying. However, I still have another question about last week. Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, joining us here. Willard and Dibs, FP's in for Dibs. So I get all that. You're sort of painting the picture of like, oh, you're not going to just willy-nilly make this decision because you didn't like a Wednesday in Orlando. But Steph Curry was in tears. Why the tears, and why does Steve Kerr, with 24 hours to think about it, choose the word unforgivable?
I think these are moments. These are emotions. They were not happy he got thrown out. I don't want to ever claim to say that they were, but it's also because they dealt with it. They deal with Draymond. It was not forgivable for him to punch Jordan Poole either. It was not forgivable for him to do many other things. They deal with it, and they're a better team when he's on it than they are if he's not on it. And I always say this on Twitter or whatever they call it now. Don't just focus on the thing you saw. That's not the only thing. Don't just focus on the word you hear. That's not the only thing said. It's a bigger picture. Again, it's context. I get it. I've been in this place before. When he choked Rudy Gobert, I thought that might be it for him. Like, it's just too much. But then he comes back from the indefinite suspension and he plays great. And the only way that Wiggins and Kuminga make sense together is if Draymond's on the court with him. You pull Draymond off the court with him, it does not make sense. That's got to be greater than, oh, I'm tired of this. Oh, I know this is, and I think that the Steph moment, again, not reading into it, I've not talked to Steph about this, but I know that he gave him a hug after the game, by the way. We all saw that video.
Yep.
It's not that he's done with him. That's not what it is, in my opinion. It's that I'm mad at him, and he's got to realize that he's more valuable than this. That's the point. So cameras catch a lot of things. They don't catch everything, and we can't just say, okay, that was it, Steph's done with him. You don't know that. I don't know that. I'm not trying to read too much into the other thing, too. They want to be the best basketball team they can be. I keep saying that. Well, it's so easy on TV and me and you guys to just say, okay, that's over. It's all over, because I'm tired of it. You're not them. You're not trying to win basketball games, and you're not saying, okay, if we don't have them, what do we do? That's the decision they make every time with Draymond. They've had to make it a lot, like I wrote. Like, they wish they didn't have to make this decision on him every time. They wish it was like, okay, he's just great. He's another Steph Curry. You don't have to worry about it. That's not Draymond. He makes a lot of money. He's never made close to the max. There's a reason for this. As great a player as he has been, and he continues to be, it's because he goes through this stuff. But you just can't look at one picture and go, that's it. I'm tired of it, so Steph must be tired of it. That ain't it. That is not what this moment is.
No, that's totally fair. But, Tim, is there something different the Warriors can do about the way they handle all of this so it's not the same cycle over and over?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I think they could have suspended Draymond for the Jordan Poole punch for sure. I've asked them about that, and they just didn't think it was the time. They did suspend him for when he yelled at Kevin Durant. I think they could have been tougher on him. I think they didn't need to, I don't know if indulge is the right word, that they could have just said, this is not happening again, and we will be the disciplinarian if no one else will be. They have not chosen to do it that way, and they believe gets them the best with Draymond, and that Draymond always has an explanation. He does always have an explanation. He does always go out and play hard again. It's not like he doesn't go play hard. It's not like he doesn't play winning basketball when he's out there. So that question is a whole other thing. I think they will say is, listen, we've signed him for less than the max. Steve Kerr didn't play him for 7 minutes in the fourth quarter, game 4 in Boston. That's a pretty big moment in the finals. Like, this stuff happens, but they do not react to what talk show hosts and columnists and ESPN talking heads want them to do. They just don't. And some of that I appreciate. Like just because it's an emergency on, First Take doesn't mean it's an emergency for the Warriors. What's the best thing they have on the basketball court to win games? They really, I can't say it enough. They really do think like that. That's what they think. Like, what wins them basketball games? And if Steph Curry does not want Draymond on the court, do you think Draymond would be on the court with him right now?
Of course not.
He wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So he clearly is okay with it. He gets frustrated. No question. He gets frustrated. I can understand why anybody would be frustrated with this. They're not the ones who are debating on First Take, though. They are not. They're just trying to win basketball games.
What do you think happened at halftime last night? I mean, the way they came out in the third quarter, especially Steph and Draymond, that's the best I've seen those two play together all season long.
Yeah, I think, again, this is just reading into it. My sense was that Draymond looked around and go, some other guys don't have it tonight. Wiggins didn't have it. Clay didn't have his legs. There was no Kuminga. So I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to go do it. And, not a great team. Spurs are not a great team, but Warriors were down by 8, and somebody needed to do something. And Draymond, whether he said it in the locker room or Draymond just said it himself, maybe he and Steph talked about it, said, I'm going to go. Wembanyama is not going to be dominating me. And if you notice, he did not. He scored a lot of points. A lot of them was against TJD. It was not against Draymond. Or if it came against Draymond, it was tough. It wasn't easy. And I'm going to strip the ball, and I'm going to run the court, and I'm going to hit shots, and I'm going to take it to Wembanyama. And that's something. Now, sometimes Draymond says that, and it doesn't work out because, sometimes his passes go a little offline and his shot isn't in. But in this game, I think Draymond did notice that Wiggins and Clay in particular just didn't have it. And it wasn't an A-plus Steph game either. It was a good Steph game. It certainly finished great, but it wasn't at that moment an A-plus Steph game. So Draymond took it upon himself, which he can do.
Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, with us here. Willard and Dibs, FP is in for Dibs. Tim, they have said, Joe Lacob has said, he has said it to you, that if this is just kind of goes out with a whimper, 10 seed and a one game out, that there would be big changes. What could those even be? What's available to them this offseason?
Yeah, I don't know. They always have stuff. They always have plans. I mean, I think Chris Paul coming back is now very dwindling chances of that happening. That's a contract that would just disappear. Klay Thompson will not be signing for $40 million. I'll tell you that. And if he does, it will not be with the Warriors, and it might be half of that. I think those are two easy things for them. Those are two big changes, right? To not bring back those two players would be large, or to bring back Klay at a low number. I think Kevon Looney, may probably at this point I would not draw him down as being on the roster. So just those three things would be interesting, or they could possibly use the Chris Paul contract. It's non-guaranteed. If the other team, if you trade him to a team that guarantees it, you can use it to try to acquire money back. Those are the easy things, or maybe not easy. Those are the kind of the workable things. There's other things they could try. They could try to trade Wiggins. They could see what Kuminga's worth, although I think actually he's the guy you keep. But I think there will be changes. I mean, let's say play-in game. Even they win the play-in, from where they're at, they'd have to win 2 games and end up as the 8th seed playing the number 1. They're going to lose, whether it's 4 games, 5 games, whatever. I think there would be changes. There's going to be changes. They need to get a couple more players. I don't know exactly who's available. I know they always like to have plans. And you know what? Sometimes it's like, let's go sign Kevin Durant. And it doesn't sound like they can do it, and they go ahead and they do it. Sometimes they have plans that they never come close to. But Lacob has told me they not only plan to get out of second apron, which would be a cut of about $10 million, they plan to get it under luxury tax, which is a cut of about $30 million, more than that. Like, that's significant. And that's I just don't think they're going to, I don't think Chris Paul's going to be back on this team next season. And I don't think Klay Thompson's going to get anything close to what some numbers have been thrown out about him. And then they figure it out from there. Then they figure out who's available. I would have thought they would have traded Wiggins this trade deadline just because he wasn't playing very well. Just to take that money off the table, so they might have money for Chris Paul or more money for Klay, but they didn't. They chose not to do it because he was playing well. And again, a very practical decision. They were mad. They weren't happy. I'll put it this way: they weren't happy with Andrew Wiggins at the start of the season. There was certainly some thought they could just trade him for nothing just to get rid of the contract. Guess what? He started playing well, so he was better for them, and they kept him. These are all practical decisions. These are decisions made in the moment. Maybe they can revisit that one in the offseason, but it's just based on where they think the players are, where the value is, and that one they might want to reconsider.
Tim, before you run, how do you look back on the entire Joey Bart experience with the Giants?
Nice guy. I always enjoy talking to him, but just a big hole in his swing, right? I mean, FP knows more than me, but pitchers know how to get him out. Have always known how to get him out, and I just thought that when I saw him, he seems to have all the tools to be a regular everyday, at least a regular everyday major league catcher, but has not happened. Better for him to get a shot somewhere else. I think everyone kind of looked up when Farhan Zaidi drafts Patrick Bailey with his first round pick, not long after Joey Bart was drafted by a previous administration. Maybe that was the hint early on, but I like Joey. I thought there were some good moments for him. I remember the home run and the home opener a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But it wasn't there for him. He just didn't produce, and too many swings and misses, and then some defensive issues too. And again, I thought he had all the tools, but what I remember is a guy that you looked at and you go, that guy's a major leaguer, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for him. No, he's not for the Giants.
Tim, great to have you today, man. Thank you so much for hopping on.
You got it, guys. Anytime.
Okay, Tim Kawakami, The Athletic, TK Pod, part of the Odyssey family.